All right, but now we're not talking about the jibby jabs anymore. We're talking about biological males meeting with the president to talk about the joys of girlhood and the absolute erasure of biological women from discussion that, under the normal run of things, concerned them and only them. So Dylan Mulvaney, for those of you who don't know, is a TikToker influencer, social media personality, who's now risen to fame. Is a stand-up comedian, I think. Claim to fame now is having produced something called, his documenting his days of girlhood. And I say this with no judgment to transgender individuals, to each their own, to the extent that what they're doing affects them and only them. That's what adults are allowed to do. Make their own decisions, make their own mistakes, live their own lives. When it comes to the situations where one person's decisions affect other people, that's where we start running into the philosophical, theological argument of one person's rights trumping the rights of another person. A biological male deciding they want to do whatever they want to do to their bodies, transition to whatever they identify as, fine. Live and let live, to each their own. To go from there to a world in which biological men who statistically, biologically, chemically, glandularly, muscularly, bone density, benefit from certain advantages, who then say, well, as a result of my decision of transitioning, as it's so called, I want to be allowed to compete in sports that were designed for or that were limited to biological females. Then we have a philosophical, legal, ethical problem. Does one person's choice for their own body, for their own life, get to deprive another person of their own rights through no fault, through no decision of their own? Should someone procure a biological advantage from their own decisions that other people of a biological nature cannot choose their way in or out of? Most people, with a sense of justice and a sense of respect for other, would say, no. You want to change your body, all the better. More power to you. You want to change your body and then go compete in sports where the people against whom you're competing, the women, the biological women against whom you're competing, never had the choice to grow up with more muscle mass, bone density, average height, higher, average wingspan, more. They never had that choice. They never made a choice. And as a result of your choice, they are now seeing their rights, which they fought long and hard for over decades. They're now seeing those rights compromised. It should not be a very complicated discussion, yet it is. And now you've got Dylan Mulvaney, TikToker, documenting, what is it called? This one is called Day 222, talking to the president at the White House with now this trans White House. Now, and it was the joys of girlhood. Let me see if I can hear this here.
You know that phrase, I fear I may have girl bossed too close to the sun? Well, that's how...
Girl bossed too close to the sun.
It's day 222 of being a girl. I'm in Washington, D.C., and I'm going to the White House to speak to the President of the United States. You know that phrase, I fear I may have girl bossed too close to the sun? Well, that's how I feel today, because I get to sit down with Joe Biden.
And by the way, the shirt says, not don't mess with trans adults. Don't mess with trans kids. So this individual, all the rights in the world to do what he wants, what Mulvaney wants, is now promoting what should be done to children.
Now this news, and I get to ask him a few questions surrounding trans issues in the United States, and talk to him about my transness. And I really just want to represent my community the best that I can. And you know what? As silly as I am on here, I'm ready to step up and show that trans people, we're not going anywhere.
That's never part of the discussion, Dylan.
And that trans kids, they deserve a fighting chance to be their true selves. Okay. Oh my God, I'm running late. Let's go. And y'all are obviously wondering what I'm going to wear to meet the president. Here you go. It's the trans flag colors. Cute, right? It's the heels. Okay.
It's cute, eh? The heels, like the impression that Dylan seems to have of women is the most regret. It's like reducing women to heels. I mean, that's I guess the bottom line takeaway.
You're going to be great. I love you. Let's go. Come on. Do you think I just knock on the front door?
We can stop it here. So Dylan Mulvaney goes to meet with the president. And then the president was asked some questions. Dylan Mulvaney asked the president some questions, one of which was regarding, I don't want to mangle it. Let me see if I can get the actual quote here. Son of a bee sting. I had the link up in the back. Let me just get the quote. Won't be accused of misquoting. Here we go. This is it. Here.
Do you think states should have a right to ban gender-affirming healthcare?
I don't think any state or anybody should have the right to do that. As a moral question and as a legal question. I just think it's wrong.
Do you think states should have a right to ban gender-affirming healthcare?
I don't think any state or anybody should have the right to do that.
I don't think any state or anybody should have the right to do that. Not even the parents for the kid?
As a moral question and as a legal question. I just think it's wrong.
Now, this is a very important lesson of the day, people. Understand the terms of a question when you're asking the question. And this is not to be the wordsmith of the devil. This is to make sure that you understand the scope and extent of the terms being used in a question that you're being asked. Gender-affirming healthcare. Now, I'll read my tweet on it. It says, when one appreciates that in this context, gender-affirming healthcare includes hormone blockers for developing children and double mastectomies on young girls, top surgery, as the euphemism goes, one can truly appreciate the evil we are witnessing. Now, some people, we're gonna steel man both sides of the argument. Some people are going to say gender-affirming healthcare does not only refer to hormone blockers, puberty pausers, as some of the doctors are calling it, or double mastectomies. It doesn't only refer to puberty blockers and double mastectomies. It also refers to therapy, consultation, doctors, mental wellness. So it's not only that, but it necessarily includes that. It necessarily includes that because that's part of the public discussion right now. Gender-affirming healthcare is not just a question of psychological, psychiatric consultations, consulting someone to talk to come to grips with, to try to, in as much as possible, accept or move through or move on. Gender-affirming healthcare includes both that and irreparable changes and surgeries to the human body. Joe Biden might not understand very much at this point in time. He gets asked a question and might not understand what is meant by gender-affirming healthcare. It sounds innocuous enough. It sounds almost like nothing. It sounds beautiful. Gender-affirming health. How can anyone say no to gender-affirming healthcare? Well, when you know what it involves, you can certainly take a step back and say, hold on a second. Gender-affirming healthcare does not just talk about psychological treatments. It includes puberty blockers, hormone therapy, what they call those little puberty blockers that just put your puberty on pause, as the Boston Children's Hospital professionals say. It includes top surgery and it includes bottom surgery. And for anyone who hasn't seen the images, the graphic, horrifying images of what the bottom surgery is next level graphic imagery. An adult wants to do it, to each their own. I mean, you're going to have the medical discussion as to whether or not a doctor should do this to someone who even asks for it as an adult. Separate issue. There's doctors out there who perform all sorts of cosmetic surgery of greater or lesser degrees of severity. An adult, one thing. When we're talking about gender-affirming healthcare with kids, Dylan Mulvaney's shirt says, don't mess with trans kids. Let them be who they want to be. And that means gender-affirming healthcare. And Joe Biden says, nobody should get in the way of that. Not authorities, not the states. Does he know what it looks like? Has he looked at the top surgery? Double mastectomies. I interviewed Chloe Cole on this channel. Chloe Cole, for those of you who don't know, is now an 18-year-old woman who, when she was between the ages of, let's just say 11 to 15, was suffering from certain mental issues, was diagnosed with autism later on, was diagnosed with a bunch of stuff, treated with all sorts of medications. At one point, decided that she was trans and began, pressuring her, not pressuring, but rather decided she's trans, needed to be a boy. It was the only way that she could survive life. Went to see doctors who very, very proactively encouraged the procedures, ended up with a double mastectomy at the age of 15. That is not a breast reduction. And by the way, when I got into the details with Chloe, even I was sort of saying this, I was shocked, not in a moral sense, I was shocked in what goes into that surgery. People think double mastectomy is, they just cut off some tissue. In order to make a young girl look like a young boy, it's not just a question of removing the fatty tissue from the breasts. They have to reposition the nipple. And so it involves a removal of the nipple, removal of the tissue, removal of the glands, removal of the muscle, and then repositioning it. And Chloe was saying, she was explaining how nobody went into any meaningful detail about the consequences, the long-term, lifelong consequences, the healing time. Chloe said that she's still having issues because of the surgery, because of the repositioning of parts. I mean, it's beyond what you can imagine. Now Joe Biden comes out because he's riding the thing of the times, invites trans online TikTok super celebrity Dylan Mulvaney to the White House to talk about girlhood with him. Don't forget actual girlhood. I mean, in a sense, I guess this is talking about the trans issue and not talking about girlhood or womanhood. So Dylan Mulvaney should be a spokesperson for trans rights. Dylan Mulvaney asks Joe Biden if he believes in gender-affirming healthcare for kids. Did he say for kids? Actually, I don't want to make a mistake here. Hold on. Let me just hear again. He did not say for kids. He said, do states have the right to ban gender-affirming healthcare? So, not specifying children, but the question, it is baked into the question, especially since Dylan Mulvaney is there to protect trans kids.